Hi. So a common question that comes up a lot is how do you hook up a Watson machine learning model to Watson Assistant? So I'm going to walk you through that, and I'm going to walk you through all the nuances and things that make it annoying to set up. But once you've done this, it should be able to apply to any model. So first thing I need to do is create my model. I've already set up a project in Watson Studio. The data set I'm using is the Iris data set. It's a well-known data set for starting off as a data scientist. The reason I'm picking this is that there's only 4 features, so it's going to keep it somewhat simple. Um, when I downloaded the data set, the only change I've made is I added these column names, which we're going to need for later. So if I go back to Watson Studio and let's just get the data set. So it's this one here. I'm going to drop it into Watson Studio. Okay, we can take a look, just make sure everything's okay. All good. Okay, so let's just go back and let's create a new asset. So we're going to create an auto AI, which will do all the work for me to make it into a classification model. So classification and do create. I can select the data from my project, data asset, iris data set. Now it's not time series, and I want to predict what the class is, what type of flower it is. So we're going to run the experiment. It should take a little while. It takes a few minutes. So I'm going to speed up at this point. And it's done. So 2 minutes. And it's already picked the best model for me. So I'm going to save that model, the model itself, and just give it the default name. And just click create. Okay, my model is built. So let's just go back to my project. And you can see the model is there. Now I need to promote my model so that I can use it. Pick my deployment space. When you set up Watson Studio, a lot of these things will set up as you're doing it. Okay, so my model is now deployed. So this is my deployment space. This is the model I created. So I can click deploy, and I'll set it online so that it's a single call. I'll call it iris classification and just click create. So you can see it's initializing. It'll take a few seconds. Okay, so we're fully deployed. So we can click on the model, and here's all the details that we're going to need, but let's just test it beforehand. So say 2.3, 6, click predict. Okay, so the model is working. So the next thing we need is let's go back here. We need the public endpoint. So I'm going to copy that. And you notice that's IAM token, bearer token. So I've already created the extension, but I'll walk through each of the pieces. So when I give this, you'll have the blank one, but what you would do here is you would paste in the URL, which was the URL from the public, and then you take it up as far as here. And then in the paths, you replace the path, and then take out this version piece as well. Okay. So what this extension does is you can see, like, I've already set the version number that I removed. And if we expand this, it gives more details on what actually is going on here. So as an input data, it expects fields with this in it, and then the values we supply to do the prediction. If it's not being used, we use a null. And then for the response, what we get back is, we get a fields and a values. And the values piece is pretty important. This is what catches people up a little bit. In here, you can see it's a string and then it's an array. So in OpenAPI, you would use one of these to say that, it could be a string or it could be an array, but Watson Assistant doesn't support these. So if you're using this, you'll get an error. To work around, what I do is I just set the items as an object. So it doesn't know exactly what's coming back, but it'll treat it as an object. And in Watson Assistant, it will auto box that object that you can work with it. So this is just a way to work around that. The other important piece is this piece here. So I took this from the Discovery Starter Kit, but if you're making any calls to IBM Cloud that's using the IAM, this is the piece that you need. Okay. So yeah, so this is the whole extension. What I'm going to do now is it's currently in what's called YAML format. I'm going to convert and save as JSON, and that's created that there. So let's go over to our sample skill. I'm just going to add the extension first. So build custom extension. Next, I'll call this iris classification. And we want to pull the one from downloads and click next. So it gives you all the information. We'll click finish. And then I want to add it to this project. Next. And authentication is OAuth2. Now I need an API key, so let me show you how you do that as well. So if we go back to Watson Studio, and we'll go here in the menu, and then if we expand out the administration, you'll see there's an access IAM. And in here, you select API keys. Okay, so click create. Okay, and then I'll just copy that. So that's my API key. So if we go back, Watson Assistant, and paste it in there. Okay, so it's all set up now. Click finish. And before I walk through this action, I just need to fix the code. So I'm gonna click on iris classification, and I want to find the piece that calls the extension, and use an extension. It's my iris classification. Determine iris type. The version's already set up for me. Input data, I want to set it to a session variable that I've already set up called input data. And for some reason that's, oh yeah. So this is the thing as well. Although it shows it here, you have to actually click apply and then it will save. Okay, and then I just need to fix these two steps. So if step 7 is, step 7 ran successfully. Otherwise, step 7, ran successfully is not equal to true. Okay, so ran successfully is true. Actually, let's just make that a bit easier. Equals false. Okay, so you know what's going on. Okay, so this is the action set up. Let me walk through each of the steps. So the first thing I do is, this is a bit of a hack. What I'm doing here is I'm taking step 8 and I'm going to store my prediction in step 8. And I do this by making a free text and then saying never ask. So this step will never execute. It might grab some information, but I'm going to pre-fill it so to prevent it from actually executing. And I can use this as a sort of an action variable. You can think of it like once the action disappears, it gets rid of it. So it's just a bit cleaner than using a session variable. Okay, so if we go back to step 1, now the UI doesn't allow you to actually fill out later steps. So to work around this, what you can do is, I want the value of step 8, so I'll create a new step and I'll go to the expression editor and then I'll look for step 8 there. So action step variables, predicted. And now I have the code for what step 8 is. So I can delete that. And, and then we go back to the first, and then you can see I've already put it in here. So this is going to pre-fill that with could not make a prediction, so that if it fails for any reason, it's just going to come with that response. The second piece is a session variable because I need it as an object, which you can see defined by this little world icon, and I'm going to set it to a blank array, and this just resets it basically for the sub action, which I'll show you. So each of these steps asks for pieces of the information. So you'll notice it says custom response type. So let me show you that. So in the custom response type, what I've done is I've added an option button, which is this piece here, which will just say skip. And if you click skip, it will send a value of -1. So this allows me to make my predictions on certain values and not all the values. It's just a way of, reducing the amount of input that you need to put into the model. So you can see, and then once this is filled in, on the next step, I call to a sub action to basically convert this input over here into what I'm going to send to the model. So I have to put it on the next step because, the information is not there for it to run. So when I go here, it checks length. When I go here, it checks the width and so on and works its way down. So what's going on in the sub action is I'm passing in 2 values. So I'm passing in the field name, which is what we got from this field name here. Let me just close that so it's not appearing. And that's just straight text. And then the field value, I get it from the actual step. Okay, and then within the action, the sub action. So to make a sub action, you make sure that there's no training data in the customer starts with. And I also have, well, I'll have these 2 options switched off. I must have not picked that one. Okay, so that's fine. And then you might notice that I've got this strange arrow. So what I've done here is it's actually an emoji, and I use this as a kind of a code and practice to know that this is a sub action. It's not one that the user interacts with. So it's really just visually for me. So what does this sub action do? So the first thing we do is we check to see, is the input data not defined or has it been set to a blank array? And if it has, we build the template of what we need to send to the prediction model with no values in it. The field name and field value is what was sent in from the previous action. And what we do then is we pre-fill the field with the information that came back from here, the field name. And then we check to see, is the value not equal to -1? In other words, they didn't press skip, they entered in a value. Then we append that value to the values like so. And then we end the action, very important. Otherwise, we assume that it's a -1, so we'll pass in a null for that particular value. And that basically tells the model to ignore that value when it's trying to make a prediction. So if you go back into iris classification, you can see it's happening for each of them. And again, it happens after this step. And then the last one is here. And then this just puts some output, showing the values that were selected. tells you if -1 means ignore. And then we call our extension. And the previous subaction would have built the input data in the format that we want. So, all we're passing in is the input data and the version number. And then, like I said, this one is not activated. This is just for storing the prediction. And because what comes back from the extension isn't just a straight field, you actually have to pull the data out of an array, multiple arrays. So here if the extension ran successfully, you can see we're taking the predictions field, we're taking the first thing in the array, we're taking the values, and then it's kind of a nested array. So we're taking the first value and the first value, and then assigning that to the predicted step so that we can use it as an output. Okay. If the extension failed for any reason, then we just put the predicted step, which, like you saw before, is set to could not make a prediction. So, okay, so let's try test that. I'm going to click Iris to begin. And 3.7, 0.6, 2, 0.2, and hopefully this will work. And there we have it. So in this case, it predicted this one. So let's just try that again. I'm just gonna do the first one. So we'll say 7.4, and I'm gonna skip the other ones. And there we go. It's picked various color again. Let me pick one that's maybe Setosa. So 5439. Okay. So 5.4, 3.9, and 0.7 and 0.4. And there we go. Thank you very much.